welcome to episode 3 of the Jim Carrey Project. I am Brian Kondrach, your host, and this is my good friend,
Carrie Grant.
This is the project where we are watching every Jim Carrey movie from start to finish of his career. He's not done, but we'll see what happens. Today's episode, we just finished watching Copper Mountain. It is a 1983 sport romance film. It was directed by David Mitchell. It was produced by Damian Lee and David Mitchell. Written by Damian Lee and David Mitchell. And starring Jim Carrey and the always glorious Alan Thicke.
Glorious.
So it was about a 59 minute runtime. And let's go ahead and dive into this.
Okay, first of all, I have a question. Did this air on Canadian TV too? Do you know anything about that?
I think this was straight to DVD or straight to VHS as well.
So there was not necessarily the Canadian connection, even though both of those actors are Canadian, I believe.
think the Canadian connection was that it was basically, they're Canadian, we've got some Canadian comedians, and we're gonna put them in a buddy romp or whatever. I don't even know what you would call that one.
Rom-com?
Yeah, it would be a rom-com, buddy movie.
Show,
yeah.
Okay, because it seemed like it was set in Colorado, but
yes,
I just wondered where it aired first.
It was set in Copper Mountain, Colorado.
Yes.
It seemed like it was a giant commercial for a music festival in Colorado.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah.
I think they released it in on video first.
Okay, so I just wondered, watching this, because we had watched other ones that were made for TV in Canada, because we thought at least that first singer was a Canadian country singer, I believe.
Yeah.
And then there was quite a few other singers in there, but I wonder if they're trying to showcase this particular country singer as not quite his show, but kind of like his show. And then they're like, well, who else can we get in there?
Yeah,
that's Canadian. Well, we got Jim Carrey. He does really good impressions, and we have Robin Thicke. He has amazing hair. Let's put them all together. So that's why I kept thinking the whole time it was a Canadian made-for-TV movie again, but you don't know for sure if that
from what I was looking for, what I found, it just says 1983 film, written and directed by Damian Lee and David Mitchell, and starring Jim Carrey and Alan Thicke. It also features performances by Rita Coolidge and other country singers. So it was definitely and the last review that I read about it is that it definitely was a country music movie that featured Jim Carrey and Alan Thicke trying to get laid on the mountain or become a skier, become a ladies' man or whatever. Yeah. I think it went down. I think it did get released into theaters, but I couldn't find anything.
Oh, really?
I can't find anything about what it made or anything. So it was probably it was just distributed by Rose and Ruby, but I think it was just somewhere. Probably just made for TV kind of movie.
Go look up Rose and Ruby too. Okay. So where do we start? So there's
so many places to start on this.
So I Jim Carrey was the first one with credits on the beginning and the end, which is nice. Yeah. They definitely had some different storylines. So Jim obviously had his go-to thing, impressions, faces, and then the storyline for him was
he's trying to find a lady.
He tries to find a lady, but he only does the Jim Carrey impressions of other people.
He cannot be anybody else.
And it works terribly.
Besides Jim Carrey doing everybody else.
To the point where women walk off in the bars. He jumped in the hot tub and they scurried out.
It was only those two women though. He kept trying with the same two women.
That is true.
That was it's oh, you again.
Yeah,
you scare him off.
That is true.
And then Alan Thicke was this guy that was this overconfident skier, right?
Right.
And he's trying to find a way to get into the Pro-Am circuit, the Colorado Pro-Am, which is what is happening here?
Yeah, and where did he come from?
Yeah,
why does he think he's so good?
I think
he plays the cocky, I know what I'm doing guy great.
He's probably skied, and I think where they were coming from was probably, I don't think they said, or the sound quality on this particular video of it was so terrible that it was you could not hear what was happening. I think that they probably came what felt like East Coast Canada, which means that the skiing and the snow conditions in the East Coast generally in the mountains over there are not great. Yeah. And it's icy, it's bad. Whereas Colorado is like prime key like ski conditions. So he's like, oh, I can do anything in the Appalachian Mountains or wherever the East Coast is. But once you get into like real Colorado stuff, Alan Thicke can't handle it.
It's too powdery.
It was too much. It was too good. So yeah, that was a real funny kind of thing on him trying to be the much better skier than he actually is. Yeah, it was absurd.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it started off well. Their buddies driving in the car, get there. It's like Club Med.
It's the Club Med experience, which I think was in the 80s. The Club Med experience was like a huge thing, wasn't it?
Totally.
Like we're going on. What does the Club Med even mean?
I think it means like hook up. It's a kind of a. It's not like a family hotel. It's a hookup hotel.
It's an adult party.
Saunas and hot tubs and meeting people and drinking and
having a music party or having a concert and hanging out outside in the snow with no kids around at all.
Adult thing, yeah.
Okay, so it was a Club Med experience. And first off, it's so funny that driving, they rented a car, and this is straight up a 1980s move, where the car they rented to drive through the mountains to a ski resort was a 1980s Camaro.
Because that's what you drive in the snowy mountains.
What are you doing? That's what you drive in the 1980s snowy mountains of Colorado.
They're like, we'll be safe.
Like ultra bad A right there, and then they get there and it's just one thing after another of just like what is going to happen. Yeah,
I mean, it starts off right away with the whole like 80s cute blonde girls at the bar and how do you talk? I mean, it's like if you go back to all those 80 movies again, like it's the formula that they use, which is I think it's still entertaining. I mean, I actually found this one really entertaining compared to some of the other
stuff, the two other ones we watched now.
Well, no, the second one was definitely entertaining in a different kind of way.
Yeah, very different.
In a very sexual way. But no, it had like that feel of like I don't know, those 80s college movies and stuff like that,
I would say like the movie I keep thinking about is Hot Tub Time Machine, which isn't exactly, they go back in time to the 80s
it totally is
and are doing the exact same thing that is happening in this movie. And it's like they nailed Hot Tub Time Machine, like nailed the idea of it.
Of the
and
80s
this is
ski
resort. This movie looks like they were like the inspiration for Hot Tub Time Machine, and they were like, "Let's go see this." Hey, you remember that movie Copper Mountain?
Totally,
it's like, oh yeah, the '80s like snow party and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's so funny to see. I mean, they nailed it. Like,
yeah, no,
they nailed the party aspect of the 1980s in this movie.
Oh, totally.
And it's like, it looked like a commercial, but
we kept saying it the whole time. Like, where's the Coors Light beer can? Because it looks like
double mint gum. Spearmint.
Yeah, like
freeze
everyone's
frame.
having fun. Where's the product placement?
Where's the freeze frame with the product placement?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the movie itself was pretty fun. I mean, and it had the storyline early on. There was a little confusion with one girl, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But then the music started, and obviously that was something they really wanted to showcase. Yeah. So it started with what's his name, Robbie Hopkins.
I was looking at the Wikipedia, and it's Rita Coolidge, Ronnie Hawkins, Bill Champlin, Danny Marks is guitarist, David James is drummer. They don't even get to play themselves. They just get named before the instruments they play. Yeah. Steve Sexton, Mike Utley. These might be actors that were also just thrown into being there, but it seems like with the amount of music that they had, it was a legitimate band.
I think they hired the band part, and that band stayed the same, but the singers changed. So it was two different guy singers and two different women singers.
Yeah, and that would be Rita Coolidge probably and Tamra Champlin, I think.
And they played full songs.
Yeah.
Every time.
This was basically 3 different music videos that happened to have a ski movie behind it.
I think there's at least 4 or 5 songs on there. Yeah. He did one in the beginning, then he did another one, and then half another one, and then she did. The other guy with the weird hair, he did one. I don't remember the there was at least 4 to 5 full songs in this show, and it's only an hour. That's a long time.
The majority of the movie was
music. That's a good 25 minutes of the movie
it was either music
straight up
or
music video.
Music video. I feel like the directors were told, like, we need to showcase these musicians, and also we want to have this, like, Jim Carrey and Alan Thicke in it. So they did a great job of directing music videos. Yeah. They did a terrible job of directing a bromance, like, or like a sport adventure comedy movie.
Yeah. Well, the videography for the performances were always good. Yeah. Good angles. Lots of angles. They get the backup singers. They were like getting all the shots.
Beautiful
for sure.
weather.
Yeah, really weather. There were some pretty good shots of the skiing, which I'm sure are all like,
professional skiers going down the mountain.
Stunt double skiing wasn't necessarily Alan Thicke out there, I don't think. So those were pretty good shots too. But then like the video of some of them having the conversations were kind of just poor and average to poor, I'd say.
The audio quality was terrible for any of the dialogue that was not related directly to singing or the musicians talking.
Yeah.
At one point.
I mean, there was that one, I told you there's that one scene in the bar, and it was like the over the shoulder
the back
scene
of the head
of Alan Thicke talking to another guy.
I think one of the owners or the manager of the race.
And he said at least 2 lines, and they didn't cut from the back of his head. Yep. So you couldn't hear it at all. Like nothing. Like, I mean...
It was just out there. It was... Whatever was said, it was gone. Here's something. The plot, as according to Wikipedia, the 2 friends travel to Colorado ski resort. One is looking to hit the slopes, and the other attempts to seduce women. That's the entirety of the plot right there.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Let's talk about Jim Carrey's performance, because we've talked a lot about the movie so far and about how terrible the audio was and like what kind of director it was.
Let's talk about Jim.
Let's talk about Jim for a second. Within the first 10 minutes, we see him do classic Jim Carrey impression of... now I'm going blank on his name.
Well, he referenced him doing Jack Nicholson, which I don't think
we didn't
ever did.
We didn't see Jack Nicholson because he did it on the plane, which of all places to do a Jack Nicholson impression of the 1980s Jack Nicholson or 1970s Jack Nicholson is going to be the worst place is going to do the plane. It's probably from.
Why?
I think it's from the movie. No, actually, I can't even say that because I don't know if that's true, and I'm going to get really wrong on it.
Okay.
I was gonna say the one where there's something in the plane, like in the Twilight Zone thing, but I don't think Jack Nicholson did that. I think there's a movie of him. Then. I think there's a movie with him on a plane, and it's just
Corbin's getting annoyed with us.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
It was William Shatner.
That was the Twilight Zone.
Terror at 10,000 feet.
But wasn't there a movie with Jack Nicholson, or not Jack? Yeah.
It was the guy from Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, now all of our names are going out.
Harry and the Hendersons, okay.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
From the Sun.
Yeah.
Well, he started with Sammy Davis Jr. when he was.
Yeah, that's who it was. That's who I was trying to figure it out.
And then
Sammy Davis Jr. was the name that I was trying to go with.
He did Steve Martin doing Wild and Crazy Guys.
Yeah,
from
the Happy
SNL.
Feet. Or I think that was that the Jerk or was that Wild and Crazy Guys?
I think it was. It had that feeling of Wild and Crazy Guys. I might be wrong, but it was definitely Steve Martin doing one of his characters. Yeah. And then I'm not even sure what was he doing right before he jumped in the hot tub.
He was doing Happy Feet.
Oh, that was the one.
But he was doing Jacques Cousteau Happy Feet.
That's right, yeah.
Because when he gets bored, he does that. But like the Sammy Davis Jr. thing, that is something he has done in at least 3 or 4 other films since this one. In Liar Liar, he has a whole like outtakes bit where he does that exact same Sammy Davis Jr. thing. He has like that's the funniest thing. It's like he nails it. Like that's one of his best impressions, and it's hilarious. But he brings it back all the time.
Well, people must like it, so they're like, "Well, do that one again."
I just didn't realize that he had been doing that for this long, like since the beginning of his career.
This one, right?
He's been doing the Liar 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 had that one in it where he was messing around and like in outtakes and stuff. But then his Clint Eastwood one, which one of the next movies we'll watch will be a Clint Eastwood movie where Jim Carrey's in it.
No.
Yeah, but it's like Clint Eastwood is one of his...
Well, he did Clint Eastwood in that first one we watched.
Yeah. And it's just so funny to see him with these impressions that everyone knows from more recent films that he's been doing since his first 3 films that he's ever been in.
Cool.
It's amazing to watch it because they're still as strong now or in 83 as they were in or as they are in 2019 and 2016.
I mean, I think good for him. Like he found something that worked for him and that he was good at, and people recognized it at the time, which, you know, starting out in like I always feel like the 80s was one of those times where people were just like, we gotta figure this out, and like they were doing different things. And so credit to whoever said, hey, you're funny, I like that, that's good, let's put that. I mean, his whole spiel in the movie was a guy who does impressions and puts off women by doing them.
Yeah.
Who wants to hook up with women.
I imagine that's his taking from real life and put it into like.
Be interesting to know if that was the real case and he was like pulling like,
how many times has he been
thinking this is gonna work and it just doesn't work. It just like scares him, you know.
But now in 2019 he's been married twice and he's been divorced twice, so it's like it works for a little while and then it just drops off.
Oh, I bet it still works.
It's fun. Yeah. It's funny. So let's talk about, we got to some of the impressions. Let's talk about some influences in some of his other films besides that. And this movie looks like it was a direct influence for Dumb and Dumber. Which I cannot wait to watch that movie, and knowing I've seen this one and being like, the sweater or the cardigan that he's wearing with the terrible salmon fish on it.
Yeah.
The guy that was the professional skier turned bartender.
Yeah.
That all 3 of us, you, me, and Corbin, all almost lost our drinks because he looked so much like Jeff Daniels from Dumb and Dumber.
The haircut was almost exactly the same.
When they filmed Dumb and Dumber, did they take direct references from Copper Mountain and put it in there and be like, oh, you remember, like, let's make fun of Jim Carrey for this? Because I know in his character in Dumb and Dumber, he has a chipped tooth, which was a real thing that Jim Carrey had done, is he like had chipped it and had it filled, and then he was like, oh, knock that out and I'll just have it for the movie and stuff. So it's like, how much of this is like just directly lifted and put into Dumb and Dumber? I cannot wait to find out about that one. It's so funny.
Well, does Jim Carrey, I mean, we're kind of stepping ahead with Dumb and Dumber, I guess, but like, is he producing any of that? Is he involved in it, or is he solely just an actor in those films, or is he along now where he's sort of? I think now creating it.
I think now in some of his stuff that he's been working on, like the TV show where he plays like kind of a Mr. Rogers character. It's on Showtime or something. I think he has some production input on that one, but I think a lot of the times in a lot of his movies, he's kind of just been, I mean, maybe an executive producer, but I think overall he's been just like.
Well, I mean, he must. I mean,
he has creative control as an actor with that kind of pull and that kind of background.
So he must have some input in like, and somewhat storyline and you know the improv part of it, but also maybe like physicalities of
what do I want to get away with?
I mean, he's so smart. I mean, he must have like, I mean, maybe who could forget this? I mean, maybe he was just like, hey, you know, I did this film where this haircut was the best back then, and it like.
Well, who would be the guy to have that haircut, but somebody who does not necessarily know or care, like since the 80s, to have changed it at all.
I mean, when he came on the screen, that bartender, like that was so
that was ridiculous.
Like I was looking really hard to be like, that's really not him,
have
right?
Have they done a movie together already?
That was hilarious.
It's so funny.
So funny.
Let's talk about his ploy to get another woman hooked up with the man she was trying to go with. Yeah. It didn't make a whole lot of sense in that situation. It was an
extra plot line that didn't necessarily need to be there, but added to the story. Yeah. I will say, because there wasn't all that much of a story anyway. So it was kind of nice to have a little bit extra, but it wasn't developed very well.
No. Well, I mean, here's my takeaway from it, is that this is a guy who cannot figure out how to get women, but he can figure out how to help somebody else get a man or find love and get in a relationship. Yeah. So why doesn't he just relax a little bit and do what he does to help somebody else?
Is that the line? Is that the point? But I'm wondering if that's the plot. Is like hey, he finally relaxed and quit trying to hit on women. He just tried to help a woman get what she wanted, and maybe that helped him in the long run.
I think it helped.
But it wasn't really.
It helped his buddy more than it helped him. I think.
It wasn't really laid out that way. I mean, we can read into that, but I'm not really sure they had that in mind.
I don't know. I don't think they were thinking that far ahead in this movie when that was happening.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole storyline was a little bit odd and not really developed at all. Like, it floated away after they
fell out of the ski lift.
Fell off the ski lift and then cut back to them laying in front of this where you get off the ski lift, making out, and people are going around them when they get off. Such a mess. Yeah, that part was weird. But I think maybe they were trying to make him calm down a bit. Just not worry about talking to women so much and just be helpful and just be a good person kind of thing. I don't know.
So whose movie was this? Was this Alan Thicke's movie or was this Jim Carrey's movie?
It was a singer's movie.
It was the musician.
It was a country music movie.
Oh my god. There were so many scenes where it's just like the next thing that's going to happen is someone's going to set a Coors Light can down in frame. Yeah. Taste the Rockies.
I think I mean, someone should make commercials. Those commercials are great too. I love old 80s commercials.
I think they just took a bunch of old 80s commercials and cut out the product placement for this movie.
They did. They're like, what is good in a beer or 80s commercial? Skiing, women in hot tubs, country music songs,
blue skies, powder, sweet shots, jumps, and ski lodges, and dancing,
and a little dancing on the side. That's it. Like everyone's having a good time. That's all they care about.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We got the product placement at the end of the movie after Alan Thicke. Spoilers. After Alan Thicke's spoilers wins the race, or somehow wins the race.
Didn't look like he won.
He was pretty far behind. We saw the second place winner or other competitors wearing the Labatt's Canada jersey, which is the Canadian beer or Michigan beer. I don't know. A North beer. I think it's Labatt. I think it's Canada. But we finally got that product. It wasn't even a can or a Pepsi or a Coke. It was just like a guy wearing
the thing on the jersey. Yeah.
Labatt's.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I mean, what did you accept? What did you think about Robin Thicke's performance? How you feel like he is from today versus back then?
Well, I was trying to remember what movie it was or what TV show that it was that I've seen him in all the time, and it was Growing Pains, and that's where it's like, oh yeah, that's Alan Thicke. Robin Thicke and Alan Thicke are two different people, so I think we kind of confused.
Did I say Robin? I meant Alan. Sorry,
Robin,
Alan, not the dad, not the kid.
Robin is the singer, is a singer dancer.
I meant Alan.
Singer musician. Alan Thicke is. I think growing up as a comedian in Canada, I think this was probably a great role for him, for both of them, really. Where it's like we get to go hang out in Colorado for a couple days, shooting this film. Trying to ski, I guess, if it wasn't Alan Thicke actually skiing, I'd be kind of a little disappointed that it was he couldn't be the one to try and hold his own on these shots. Because
it looked like he skied a little bit.
I think that he probably did a little bit, but it was probably stunt skiers and things like that.
Well, most of it was pretty intense.
How much fun would it be to be in a show like this, in a movie like this, where it's like, hey, can you ski? Yeah, I can. If you let me do my own stunts, I can at least
Actors
be
always
on
say
the
yes.
ski.
You figure it out later.
Right? Yeah, of course I can ski. But then, to hang out in the mountains with Jim Carrey, which I imagine was probably a lot of fun for everyone.
Who doesn't like listening to live music too on the mountain?
Most of this movie, they probably played the full song all the way through to make sure people were actually dancing and having a good time.
Fun. Well, they were doing, the shots of the crowd and stuff too. People dancing and enjoying it and stuff. So, I mean, I kind of enjoyed Alan Thicke, and I just thought he is exactly the same as I feel like I saw him through Growing Pains, and I see him in things now when he does cameos and stuff. He's still the same guy. His hair is just so luxurious
still
and so thick.
Poofy.
I mean, the best part too. I mean, I don't know if you can get a shot of it, but that hat that he would wear.
The trucker's hat.
The trucker's hat would sit right on top of his head. There's no way that thing didn't fall off when he was going down the mountain. They must have bobby pinned it.
Clipped in somewhere.
Yeah,
with the 80s perm. Just holding it into place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's just so Alan Thicke with his hair and his laugh was the same. He laughed a few times in there, which was sort of like his not real laugh, kind of fake laugh, but it's like it was
his
so
game
great.
show host laugh kind of thing.
Like I actually really kind of enjoyed watching him in it too,
fun.
just because of the nostalgia of him from the 80s and early 90s.
For being top billed, Jim Carrey didn't seem to be in this show as nearly as much as Alan Thicke or the musicians.
Definitely not the musicians.
We keep coming back to that, but it's like all the musician stuff.
Yeah.
Like there was a part where after Jim Carrey was trying his ploy with the white sheet, which the 80s trying to ask for a white sheet to wear on your head in a ski resort, it was like, there was no one to scare off if they were doing like, he was trying to be an Arab, like stereotypical Arab, like oil baron or something. And it's just like, you're just asking for problems in this one. But like after that moment, he gets kicked off the ski lift and we don't see him for like another 10 minutes until he's in the shower before getting into the sauna with the two girls he's already scared off twice. And it's like, why? Like, what was the point of all of this work to just like let it stay out in the open somewhere for as long as it did?
And going back to one more other like, politically incorrect thing was when Robin Thicke was talking about skiing against the
bartender, the fat bartender
who was a little bit overweight, not and he like went on and on and on about how big he was, and it was really like
he was mean. It was just straight up mean spirited.
Totally, it was a little bit like in today's world, it felt uncomfortable to hear him go on and on and on and on.
Oh, I know. I know.
So,
I can't imagine.
I mean, different times.
It was different times.
Yeah.
One thing before we get close to finishing up here is one thing that I wanted to talk about is we're kind of in the end of made-for-TV movies that Jim Carrey has been a part of.
Cool.
It was only 3 or 4 of them, all the early 80s. He does have a TV show that he got started in '84 called The Duck Factory, about a cartoonist, an animator that is trying to save his like dad's company or something like that.
Okay.
We'll touch on those in a little while coming up, but that'll probably be special episodes or something. There's one movie that I could not find anything for anywhere, and that is called All in Good Taste. If you can ever find it and watch it, sure, why not?
Okay. I'll look for it.
It's everything I could learn from there is that it's an 85-minute Canadian movie again. And here's what happens in these 1983 movies that I think is absolutely hilarious. Jim Carrey becomes top billed on the majority of them after
the fact
Ace Ventura and Batman.
How do you know that? How
Jim
do you know
Carrey.
they changed?
Because there's places where it's talked about that. Like in Rubberface, that was rebranded. In Copper Mountain, it was rebranded to have Jim Carrey as on the predominant like picture of.
I'm sure that happens sometimes.
His stuff. I mean, this is the picture right there.
Yeah, he is not the main star of that movie.
So just so you know, it's a picture of Jim Carrey on top of like his head on a mountain with mountains behind it, and then Alan Thicke's name is like half of it or
Poor
less.
Alan. Yeah.
So like after Jim Carrey got famous and became this world-renowned star from things like Ace Ventura, Batman, and like all those 3 or 4 movies, The Mask and all that stuff, all these early movies he's in just were like, hey, Jim Carrey, watch this movie. And
they must still get money.
Probably.
And
if it gets played,
and stuff.
if it gets played somewhere, someone gets a royalty check somewhere.
Sure.
So All in Good Taste is a movie that I really could not find a whole lot about it. The Wikipedia is telling me to ask stuff. So it also is a picture of Jim Carrey predominantly on the cover.
Making a weird face, yeah.
It is a film, a young filmmaker has a screenplay about an orphan and his dog who are in search of a loving family. Film investors force the filmmaker into making a movie with sex and violence. So the director is like, I want this family film thing. But like in the story, the director who wants to make this family film is forced into doing this raunchy stuff. Jim Carrey plays a naked cameraman and he's in the movie for about 20 to 30 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Is what I've
Well,
everything.
maybe then we don't need to watch
So
it.
he plays a silent role as a naked cameraman Ralph Parker after Carrie became a major internet star. However, subsequent video releases of the film emphasizes him as the star over actual.
He was in it for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And now his face is on
and
the
that
cover.
was in 1983.
Isn't
that
that
was
funny?
one more 1983
Wow.
movie where
Well,
it's just
do
like,
what you gotta do.
we'll see what happens.
See if someone will watch your movie from
Yeah.
30 years ago.
And
You
it's
know.
just, it's hilarious that I could not find it. I don't necessarily need to watch it.
I don't want to watch a whole movie if he's only going to be in it.
Yeah, for 30, it's like, but it's
Yeah.
part of his career.
It is.
Ooh, we could find that
Find the
30
20
seconds and then we'll call it a day.
Okay.
So I think we're getting out right now. The next couple of things we'll be watching are going to be a lot more wider releases, things that he's been in it with more larger roles, but still not like the lead.
Okay.
Until we actually 2 movies. We've got Finders Keepers next, and then Once Bitten in 1985 is going to be like his first major. I guess this was his first lead, one of his major lead roles.
Yeah.
Second lead role, I guess. In Rubberface, he was pretty dominant. But Finders Keepers is following him, or not sorry, Once Bitten is following him pretty much the whole way as well. So, and that was actually a wide theatrical release.
Perfect.
That,
All right.
Earth Girls Are Easy? When is that?
That's 1989.
Oh,
That's
dang.
we got 1, 2, 3 more movies
Earth
where he's a
Girls Are
supporting
Easy.
role in it. Yeah, that's
Apparently is one of them.
Earth Girls Are Easy is one of the first movies that I ever saw him in. And you'll understand
Okay.
where I get some of my sense of humor
Looking forward
after
to
seeing
that
one.
one. Okay.
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
So, okay, so let's do our rating.
Yeah.
Our rating of Copper Mountain, the story of 2 guys trying to make it in the mountains.
Oh goodness. You know what? I really liked it. I
Yeah?
like country music. I actually knew some of the songs and it was interesting. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was too much music, but would have liked more of a story. But I'd say, like, enjoyment wise, maybe like 6.5.
A 6.5.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
The average score on IMDb is 2.2 out of 10. I would, if you could get rid of the giant chunks of music, like, or change the way that this movie was billed and like sold, then I would say, if it was no music or there was more like stuff happening with Jim Carrey and Alan Thicke, I would give it a 6.5. I would give it a 7 because like what was there was fun with the 2 of them.
Yeah,
I mean, they had their things, except Alan Thicke was just like, all right, I'm gonna ski. Bye. Jim Carrey's left on his own for the rest of the trip.
It would have been better for them to interact more.
How can Jim Carrey help Alan Thicke? How can Alan Thicke help Jim Carrey on that one?
That's true.
So like, I'm dropping down. I'm giving it like a 3.5 or a 4.
What did you give Rubberface? You gave it higher
I did give it a higher than that, but I think that's because Jim Carrey was in it like way more. His impressions are good, and he had some very emotional moments, and he had some good stuff that was happening, but there was too much other stuff going on in it for me to be like, yeah, that was a good movie. If I'm giving Jim Carrey's performance a rating, I'll give it a 7. Because he's got,
I see your point.
He's got the classic. He's got the great impressions. 3 or 4 times, and then he doesn't do another one at all, really, until he's hanging out talking with the guy.
That's true.
But then he becomes a world-class skier and breaks all the records. So obviously he nails it. So,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that's what I give that one.
Okay.
It's a 6.5 or a little bit less than that one.
Yeah.
So I think it was a fun movie to watch. You didn't get to know what was happening with it, so like.
Yeah, always surprised.
Yeah.
Like every time we've come in, it's been completely different type of movie. I think what I liked about this one was that it felt familiar as like an 80s movie again. And I want to say there's like there's like an old 80s movie where they're skiing. I can't think of what it is right now.
Not Hot Tub.
No, it's like an actual
Hot Dog. Hot Dog.
I don't know, but I felt like I'd seen a version of this movie before with like 80s.
It's
80s clothes.
Because you've seen a beer commercial.
Yeah, music.
It's a good movie.
The girls and the guys in the hot tub and the opera, all that.
Yeah.
I think the familiarity of it was kind of fun for me. And yeah, I was a bit nostalgic in a way.
Yeah.
I went skiing in the later 80s, so it did kind of
jeans with scotch.
Totally skiing, yeah, totally jeans, or they hadn't really got into the neon colors yet, but the neon
it was
bright
early days of ski gear,
lime
and
colors and stuff. Yeah, so no, the music took over too much, but it wasn't unpleasant music to me at least. So
it was fun. It was a fun movie.
Yeah.
Always
different though.
Let's wrap it up. Oh my gosh, this was Copper Mountain. So we're gonna go ahead and call it a day right now. So tune in next time. We're gonna be watching. What was that one? I just said a second ago. We're gonna be watching Finders Keepers, which is 1984. Nice. Should be a fun movie. It's about a bunch of people trying to get money that's probably not owed to them from someone who died. So it'll be a lot of fun. Thank you guys for joining in. Check out our other videos or other episodes, and then join us next time. I'm your host, Brian Kondrach.
And I'm Carrie Grant.
And thank you for Corbin Russel for helping us do sound again today. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.